I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, thank you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video to help push the message out. Also, with this video, I'm including an invitation for this Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to be having an interview in regards to the book, the message, and how get it out a little better. For those that can join me, I will be doing a short with all the details on it. Thank you. Well, everyone, on this one, I want to touch on what I've been asked numerous of times, right? I don't know if they asked me to get into it on the lives or to make a video, but I done so on the lives and I wanted to touch on with one with more detail and intel, right? And it's on the wrong calls I done. And yes, it's part of politics, it's part of prison. Like I mentioned before, I'm not on here to play the Santo part. You know, I was part of the poison straight up, and I did a lot wrong, right? And I want to tell you one that really stuck out with me, mainly because it is with who it was, what it entailed, and I was straight up the chismoso in it, right? When my thoughts were always different. But anyways, you know, take you back to 2018. And I was still right there with Sana and them. And you guys know Chino was there from Old Town National City. There was other camaradas from San Diego. There was actually quite a few camaradas from San Diego, right? And amongst these camaradas, the homie Mousy from Logan, he was there. He was there under a bus of crossing candy back and forth, right? And he had about 15 to do, but he was a real respectful individual. He never messed around with politics. He never even really got in the mix like that. He always was walking around, playing handball, doing rutina. He did his little hustle here and there, right? But other than that, it was buenos dias, buenas tardes, and that was it, right? At the time, he had a little road dog on the yard from Loma, Lomita, something like that, Scoops, right? And they were used to behave the same, which is nothing wrong with that, right? That's how it is when you're there for the causa and you want to do your time and go home. Straight up, and ain't nobody gonna tell you should do different time than that, right? And anyways, inside though, he had a celly from Baker's that would eventually go home, right? And he stood by himself for a while, and then he requested for the Pilis to speak with the Juras to get someone over there, right? Specifically, which was a homie Scar from National City, and it would get done. The homie would end up going over there. And, for those that know the homie or around that area, I guess he got jumped when he was younger, and he had a big scar from the bottom of his lip going up towards his cheekbone, right? And anyways, he was a cool individual. Up to this point, keep in mind, every jardín I held, even when I was in the shoe, every pinta that I was left to look out for a pili, I've always defended camaradas to be able to defend their pride, and nothing come of it, right? Basically, it's you could go in prison, have a personal issue, whatever. It's game banging on the streets, right? They could have hurt your family, you could have hurt theirs, whatever it may have been. But so there wouldn't be no drama in the yard. Yeah, I. Used to allow it. Go ahead, go up in that cell. I knew my boundaries, so if it's that serious, just grab your piece, have the other homeboy grab his piece, go in the cell, have a homeboy close the door, and boogie. You know, to me, when I was on the linea, it was the best spot to get down with someone sincerely inside the cell. It didn't beat you getting down somewhere and the hooters right away getting up on you, right? In the cell, you were able to boogie till you got tired or you got whooped, right? Whatever, got stabbed out, whatever it was. Anyways, so keeping that in mind, right? You guys know I didn't care for Chino from National City at all, not one bit. To me, he was a 30 ass tecato that he had cellies that he liked. Let's just keep it real, right? He has them tendencies, and he would use his status to try to tell him, hey, ábrete que te voy, right? And then turn around and wash him up and have him removed, you know? And nobody could tell me any different, I was there to see it with my own eyes, how it unfolded with the homie. And anyways, one as a sureño, we just, we see, we shut up, and we keep pushing. Or you act, and you know what's coming next, you know? And the fact is, we all consider ourselves soldados, soldiers under recognition and whatever, however you want to put us. But at the end of the day, it includes myself, we're all cowards. Because, it wouldn't take more than a second. For example, we know this individual's a rapist. It wouldn't take nothing but a second and a filero to clear this fool off the yard, you know? But we don't do it. Why? Because it's just what's ingrained in us. It's the fear factor, right? It plays a big part. You, everybody could deny it, but that's the bottom line. And anyways, getting back to Scar, right? Once he gets there, the few couple weeks he's there, everything's cool. He was more, how do I say, more coming around than Mouse. He came around, he kicked it a lot more. Then Mouse, Mouse was literally on that trip. He didn't want to get involved. And you have to respect that. Scar was a little bit different. Maybe because he had life in the system, right? But anyways, one day out of the blues, me and Frankie from OC were taking laps, and we're just killing time. I remember Sana had gone out for something, but we're just taking laps, talking. Frankie was from, or is from Sinaloa, and we're just messing around, right? Do you know here? Do you know there? And whatever, right? And as we're talking, I don't know why, but Mousy gets at me. Like, hey, Chino, whenever you have some time, could I talk to you? So I said, Simon, let me, the minute I have some free time, I'll get at you, which in reality, I had nothing to do then. But I wasn't going to disrespect Frankie, even though we just BSing, He hadn't been in Mexico since he was a child, so it was what he knew. I didn't know, you know. So we kept taking laughs, and then Frankie said, like, look, I'm gonna go over here with this fool. Go ahead and go check that out. A ver, see what he has to say, It might be important, whatever. So I went over there and I told the homie Mousy, yeah, Mousy, let's take a couple laps, right? And we started walking. And a month's walking, he tells me like, "Hey, Chino, I got something to tell you that I don't know how to go about it, how to handle it, or what should I do, right?" And I told him, "What's up, homie?" He's like, first off, he wasn't known for being a troublemaker, right? And anyways, as we're talking, more so, he starts telling me that I guess Chino ended up being the one that made a call to have Scar's brother killed on the streets, and that Scar had confining him in the cell, that he was going to get close and close and close and close up until the point he's close, and Chino felt comfortable enough, and he was going to whack him, right? He's going to try to take his life. Those were the exact words. And I told him, okay. And then I tell him, how do you see that? In my head, I'm thinking like, damn, why did this fall in my lap, right? But again, maybe because I'm more of a cool homie, and I'm more like, you're getting paid, get your money, homie. Whenever I was taking laps, whatever, I was more in touch with the camaradas, right? And anyways, and he starts telling me like, I know it's wrong, right? Both ways is wrong. But if it gets out that I knew from inside the cell and allowed it, then it's gonna be my butt. And I try to stay clean and follow whatever's there. And I know when the homie got at me to get him over here with me, it was behind that. I told him, nah, no worries, homie, I'll take care of it. I give you my word, I'll take care of it. Let the old man come back, and then we'll see how to go about it, right? So now I'm set with this dilemma, personal dilemma, right? And it's do I say something or to allow it to play out? But now there's a homie that knows that I know, right? My mind, like I still keep telling you, the mind is one's worst enemy always. So, anyways, at the end of the day, I know how the program is ran. I know what a duty of a sureño is, right? Which is not only to frontline it, but it's also to be the buffer zone of anything that goes against the M. And it's just what it is. Things would end up hitting the fan with me, and you guys know the reasons, and they played out the way they played out. But at this moment, my head was there. I stopped looking at that individual like the dirty ass cat he was, and I just looked at him like he was Emmy, and he was still considered good, right? And my obligation, like a campolero, is to shield him. Even though I didn't like him, right? That's never up for question. So anyway, Sana came back, and then I told Sana, right? And I told him, hey, if you have a chance, let me get a couple minutes with you. Because there was always people around. I, and he told me, shoot, the way, because that's his favorite word. But anyways, I told him, nah, in private, por favor. And I never did that, right? There was just whatever I had to say to the Pili, they could be, if they were in the circle, camaradas, there was no problem with them hearing, right? So, anyways, I started talking to him and I started telling him what happened, right? I guess many years back, I don't know, I forgot if it was 10 or 12 years back, I guess in the neighborhood of National City, there had been a couple homies moving some weight for Chino, and they lost that. They lost that holiday, right? And Chino didn't even give him the opportunity to come up with the money and repay it, which is dumb, right? Why would you take out someone without regaining the feria, your money? You know, if you're gonna do something dirty, be dirty all the way, and it's like, give me my money, and I still deal with you. But he didn't even give him that. That's mostly what Billies do. They okey doke and hey, yeah, Simon, just get my money. And when the money's here, you're still done. But again, I don't know what went through Chino, and he had homeboy hit. He would end up taking his wing, right? Whoever hit him. And I guess Scar was young at this time, but throughout the time or the years, he came to learn everything. He was already from his hood, so it didn't really matter, right? And he had an agenda. You know, of course, he didn't know he was going to be in the feds or maybe even on the same prison compound, whatever, but it presented itself, right? And he was playing it off. And me personally, like I told Sana that day, I feel glad. I know what I'm supposed to do, and I'm not saying that in any way I'm sidetracking or I'm trying to bounce out of it, right? No, puesto, whatever needs to get done, let's do it, right? I know how it works, but at the same time, and then I went off on how it was on the yards, and he said, "Yeah, Chino, unfortunately, it's just one of the messed up situations, where you can't even go tell the camarada he can't defend his pride, that he's done. Just gotta keep it on the hush. Don't worry about it no more. I'll take care of it with Chino." And by that, you guys know what happened. Sana would end up going to tell Chino, and then Scar, he would end up getting hit. You know, the worst part is they send Mousy to hit him, and it's just double. Well, me personally, I felt double gacho. Because you're Savato that's trying to do his time as best possible, go home, and just for being sincere with them. Really, me, I ain't nobody, never been nobody, right? I was just, you could say that she's most this, but it's where my mind was, and is what the program dictated, right? And anyways, he would end up getting caught more time. The other Vato, he lived, but not only did they take his brother from him, he wasn't able to defend his pride, even though he was going to be on the other side regardless if he got to Chino. But it's hard to tell another man, hey, there's the individual right there that took out your brother, and you can't do nothing about it. The worst part is knowing that individual's trash. But it was one of them bad calls that I consider I made. I didn't have an option, but it's one that stuck with me. Because, like I said, no one should be able to tell another man he cannot defend his pride, period. But it's part of. That's the end look on this one. When you go to prison, do know you're going to run across your enemy, run across people that you have history with, and you're not going to be allowed to press that issue. Because there is times where you press, 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 and they take your wing for it, even though you're in the right to do so. So it's kind of where you put in a weigh it out. You know, are you ready to really be in that situation? Leave your neighborhood and leave your neighborhood at the gate, getting into prison as everything that you have against an enemy, because that's probably who's going to wash your back at the end of the day on the inside. Remember, when they say there's no hands on, in reality, they're saying you can't do nothing. Because I know a lot of llaveros and I know a lot of peelies that you can't even make an issue personal. And if you keep pressing, they're going to clip you. With the said, please stay true to yourself, loyal to loved ones, enjoy freedom.